Guys, important moral question. Difficult stuff, okay? So you're really going to have to put your noggin to work on this one. Is it good to kill people for no reason? I know. People have struggled with this one philosophically for a long time. Yes, it is good? All right, well then you guys are hoping then for the acquittal of Daniel Penny. It's the guy who killed that guy, choked him out for 15 minutes in the New York subway. It was, what was he, a Michael Jackson impersonator? Forgive my poor memory. This is a mentally ill homeless man who did MJ impersonations. I changed my answer. Too late! You're on this guy's side now. It was some mentally ill homeless guy did MJ impersonations. Apparently he got real, like, shouty on a train. And then Daniel Penny choked him to death. Spent 15 minutes holding him in a chokehold. Like, it wasn't like he punched him and he went down and hit his head or something like that, like heat of passion or whatever. It was 15 minutes of, like, holding him to, like, kill him, you know? It was 6? Was it 6? I thought it was 15 minutes. I mean, 6 minutes is still a long time to hold someone by the neck to choke him. Like, I mean, think about it. You're choking, like, your whole, like, you gotta breathe. "15 is Floyd." No, Floyd was 9. Is he a cop or just some rando? He was like a cop or a veteran or something. 6 minutes, yeah? Okay, I remembered 15. But yeah, I say it doesn't take away from my appointment at all. Anyway, to my memory, I'll look up the case. This guy, who I think we can agree looks like a sociopath anyway, so, you know. The jury is hung, and no, that doesn't mean what you think it means. It means they can't come to a conclusion. Jury needs to come to a unanimous conclusion in a criminal case such as this, and they have been deadlocked for some time. Is the jury hung in the other sense? I couldn't say. I don't know if their identities have been made public, and even if they have been, I don't know if that information is known about them. It's possible, but I don't know. He really does have like a lingering sociopath stare, doesn't he? I mean, obviously I'm biased against him because I think he's a murderer. Yeah, he was a Marine, so that solves the sociopath question, I suppose. Jordan Neely, there we go. Jordan Neely, 30-year-old homeless man. Can probably guess what the race of this guy is based on the fact that conservatives support his killing. Died after a 24-year-old Marine veteran named Daniel Penny put him in a chokehold. Neely boarded a New York City subway train at the 2nd Avenue station just before it departed and reportedly began screaming he was hungry and needed a job, saying he was not afraid of going to prison and was ready to die, and threatening people. Freelance journalist Juan Alberto Vasquez, who witnessed the incident, said Neely removed his jacket and threw it violently to the floor, resulting in other passengers moving away from him. So yeah, he's having like a mental breakdown. That's pretty rough stuff. Not just for him, but for the other people on the train car. I'm not gonna do one of these like delusional online lefty things where I'm like, this wasn't threatening at all. Of course it is. If some guy starts screaming on a subway train that he's ready to die and then he throws the jacket on the ground, like I think I would either want to move away from him or I would be ready to like fight him, I guess. You know? Vasquez said he did not see Neely assault anyone. Other witnesses reported fearing death from Neely's actions, including him throwing trash at other passengers and approaching people. Penny then approached Neely from behind and put him in a chokehold. Penny then maintained the hold after the train reached its next stop, while other passengers held the door open to prevent it from moving. During the chokehold, some bystanders gave warnings on Neeling's health, with one telling Penny, "You're going to kill him now," while others helped in holding him down until the police arrived. Vasquez captured the final 3 minutes of the hold on video, which shows Penny applying it for nearly a minute after Neely had stopped struggling and gone limp. Again, absolute psycho shit. The idea, all he did was throw trash at people in terms of like actual direct, like you're still holding a chokehold on a person's throat. Yeah, you can hold people down without like killing them. Like we have invented ways. Pardon my extensive jujitsu experience here speaking for me. We have invented ways to hold a person down without literally just like murdering him. You know, like multiple people too. If you thought he was freaking out and it was a danger to people, I would even argue you could justify tackling him. If he was throwing trash at people and like yelling and throwing his jacket down or whatever, and you thought he was like kind of getting in people's faces and you were like, okay, I'm not taking chances. I'm just going to like football tackle the guy. I think that's defensible. Would I personally make that call? Well, I don't know. I'm not there. But maybe. Like, I probably wouldn't, because that sounds scary. I don't want to do that. But, like, morally speaking, is it feasible? Like, justifiable? Sure. Where I take issue is choking him to death. I think there's like a reasonable middle ground between not doing anything and killing him for no reason, basically. Like, come on. Continuing to hold him in a chokehold after he goes limp, when according to witness reports, he didn't even like assault anyone except for throwing trash. Okay. Allegedly, the chokehold lasted for... When adrenaline starts pumping, time loses meaning. You know this? No, I don't think that, like, you get into an altercation, therefore you chokehold a person and strangle them for 6 minutes, including 1 minute after he goes limp. I don't think that. I don't think that. I think that it is, in fact, possible to fight or pin down a person without choking them to death. People were like telling him, you're gonna kill him now. Like, it's not even like a one-on-one. Like, it wasn't like a pitched battle where Neely had a knife and you like get the knife and as you pin him down, you're like holding him and then you're like freaking out, the adrenaline pumping, and then he like dies in your hands or whatever. That's one thing, right? That's totally different. This is, he wasn't even assaulting anyone except for the trash throwing. A former Marine attacks you and puts you in a chokehold, then keeps holding it as other people are also holding him down and telling you to stop. It's crazy. It's insane. It's murder. Well, it's manslaughter. Or at least it might be. We'll see how the jury decides. Anyway, all conservatives support Daniel Penny because they want to be able to kill black men at random. That is literally what is happening, by the way. Like, you go to literally any conservative social media, YouTube, whatever. They will talk about, like, they will overstate the harm. They will say Jordan Neely was attacking people. They'll say, all that. And they'll say that, like, Daniel Penny was just a hero protecting people on the subway. You know exactly what narrative they're going to give you. Yeah, it's unambiguous. They're racist and evil. Yeah, there is absolutely no, if you believed that this is morally justifiable, like, society would break down instantly if you applied it consistently. Can you imagine? So anytime a person like freaks out in public and gets in your face, you can chokehold them till they die. That's like now a defensible standard. Okay, I'm going to go to any MAGA rally and say that I'm pro-choice. And then when someone gets in my face and yells at me, I will then do that. I'm sorry. Are things different now? I thought getting in a person's face and being threatening, what exactly is the threshold? Is throwing trash at a person the standard? If a person throws trash at you, is that the point where you can like murder them? It's completely insane. The crazy thing is too, like, conservatives often complain about us we no longer live in a high trust society. How can you ever live in a high trust society when this is like, part of living in a high trust society is the belief that socially, not just like awkward or difficult, but socially dangerous or like socially, like situations where there's like ambiguous potential harm here. Like this, like with Neely kind of freaking out, throwing trash. You have to believe stuff like this can be resolved with a moderate hand and even temper, because if you don't believe that, everyone's always primed to kill or be killed, and you have a very untrusting society, The idea that like an armed society is a polite society, it's like a retard pledge, which is instantly countered by the American Wild West, where people died all the time and everyone had a gun on them because law out there was very sparse and there were few consequences to murdering and robbing people. An armed society is a polite society. Oh, you mean like in the Middle Ages when everyone had like a dagger on them and highwaymen robbed carriages so often that anytime you went anywhere you wanted an armed guard and travelers were like constantly accosted for all of their possessions? Oh, you're telling me that in an armed society, the person who draws first is usually the one who wins? Always? And everyone's on edge all the time? Stupid. Stupid. I just want to be able to kill black people. I hate to tell you this, but I'm a loud leftist voice. My social circle is evenly split liberal and con, and about 1% of them are sympathetic to Neely. Well, yeah, of course. Americans hate homeless people. That's the reason why this is difficult. Americans hate and otherize homeless people to an extent that, like, you could not believe. It's like the Ana Kasparian thing. Like, why do you think in California they are so militantly anti-homeless and think that prisoners should be slaves? Like, even in liberal circles, hatred for the homeless is very widespread. I would not be surprised if Daniel Penny was acquitted on most charges. Apparently, they've dropped the top manslaughter count, which was it manslaughter 1? Manslaughter 2, which already, like, I think that he deserves worse than this. But, you know, what do I know? I'm not a lawyer. Well, as far as you know. So what? It's just manslaughter 3 now? Jeez. Look at that, man. Like, other people are pinning him down and everything, and he's still like, yep, gotta restrict airflow to the brain after he goes limp. Crazy that this isn't murder. In a sane country, it would be murder. The top charge would be at least murder 3. Manslaughter 2, which is what they just dropped the charge on. A person is guilty of manslaughter in the second degree when with criminal negligence he or she, okay, so non-binary people are immune to this one, causes the death of another person. Criminal negligence. And manslaughter 3 is through recklessness or inattention. I think the idea that a 6-minute chokehold on a completely defenseless pinned person, that's not New York. Oh, right. It's David. Well, it's going to be the same in New York because they're pretty consistent definitions, but across the, yeah. Okay. New York. Yeah. New York penalty, second degree. Yeah. Recklessly cause the death of another person. And then again, for New York, manslaughter 3 would be negligence rather than recklessness. Non-binary people are still immune. They can commit crimes. It seems obvious that some malice is involved, not just recklessness. Yeah, especially because he's a former Marine. What do you think happens when you choke a person out for 6 minutes, even after they go limp? Like, that's not, you know what that does. We know how the body works. You especially, you were a Marine. You have a knowledge of this. Now, to be fair, a lot of Marines are really stupid. That's true. Maybe he did. Maybe he had no idea. Oh, wait. The person who I responded to when they said their social circle was largely anti-Neely, I thought that you were, like, contributing to the discussion. You're in favor of his murder, too, kind of. He said he was going to murder people on the train. He didn't, quote, get shouty. Oh, wait, I described in full what he did. I didn't whitewash it at all. I even said that football tackling him might have been... I said initiating physical contact against him by football tackling him would probably be a morally justifiable action. I'm not, like, lib-shitting here. New York City Police Department arrested Neely 42 times across the last decade. Irrelevant to the interaction on the subway car. We're only going off testimony from the incident. He had a documented mental health history with the police. Okay, I don't think that means it's okay to murder a person. Again, not to be the friend that's too woke or anything. I do think that that doesn't, you know, that doesn't, like, legitimize his most recent arrest in November 2021 for slugging a 67-year-old female stranger in the face. Yeah, that's pretty bad. Doesn't really bear on what happened in the context of that train car there. Me, when I murder someone in the New York Metro, and then it turns out later that completely unrelated to the facts of the case, he committed crimes in, like, years ago. Yay! I'm off! This shit is terrifying the train when it happens, and I'm a capable large guy. Well, I addressed this. Again, I am not one of those people who pretends that homeless people can't be scary sometimes. That sounds like, even me saying that, it sounds like I'm doing a bit or making a joke or something. I'm not. I grew up in Los Angeles. I now live in Seattle. I know they're not New York. I know New York. I know the one city. Everyone in New York is like, bro, you don't understand. Yeah, you don't have bodegas like we have bodegas. Oh, you have an underground metro? Yeah, okay, well, yours doesn't stink as much as ours. That's probably true. I know how you are, but like I know homelessness. I'm familiar with it from a distance. I acknowledge my privilege. The Seattle Metro, yeah, not as extensive as New York's, but you know, I'm not woking out here. Homeless people can be spooky. This guy dying has a similar effect to New Yorkers as the insurance CEO dying did in America. We have all been threatened and terrified by psychos in the subway for years now, and the general sentiment here is sympathetic to Penny. I feel like we're dehumanizing him a little bit, like with the psycho thing. Like, obviously, Neely was very mentally unwell, but, and I'm not defending that. I'm saying he's like a good person or anything. I'm just saying, like, we should be able to step back for a moment and understand the forces that cause stuff like that. You don't get to be a progressive, but then you ditch that when you personally have a negative experience with a marginalized group, of which the homeless are. You don't get to be like theoretically anti-racist, but then like, well, the black people in your city are poor and commit some crimes. So you're like, okay, hold on. We're all sick of them. Like you can't, because that's kind of what's happening here, right? You can step back. And again, we're not pulling any punches here. This is the anti-woke stream. Again, I grew up in Los Angeles, all right? Trust me, I know what homeless people are like, and I know what a lot of the areas in Los Angeles that are majority black are like, okay? It doesn't take very much. Los Angeles, they're cut up by interurban highways. You can see from like a satellite map, the zip code income differences, like when you cross certain, like you're crossing the Rubicon going under the 405, and then congratulations, you've gone from like a wealthy American city into a urban wasteland. I know, but you have to look at that and go like, okay, why? And you can't just simplify it as like, well, people are sick and tired of this. Yeah, well, who caused it? You know, it's like the classic NIMBY shit, right? Where you have like upper middle class progressive, you know, people like urbanites, and then they personally have bad experiences with homeless people, which is legit. Like you can have bad experiences with homeless people. I have, a lot of people have. And then it kind of like erodes their progressivism because their progressivism was insincere. Their progressivism only existed in like a bubble. A real progressive has to like look at the dark heart of humanity, I guess, and still come away from that and go like, yeah, I mean, it sucks, but what's causing this? And in the case of Neely and a bunch of other homeless people, it's skyrocketing housing prices, police ineffectuousness and brutality, the complete closure of like, you know, health institutions that, you know, address these issues, like the lack of support systems and networks that provide people like Neely an opportunity to, you get me? Do you have any thoughts on why exposure to other races tend to make people less racist, but exposure to homeless people seems to do the opposite? Because homeless people are like the most otherized, dispossessed group you can imagine. If you and they are categorically different by nature of the experiences they have. If you are racist, but then you go to a city and meet black people, what's the black person you meet doing? Probably like buying a cigarette pack at a 7-Eleven or what? I don't know. They're on the street doing something like that. They're walking. They're normal people. Homeless people are people, obviously. Sorry for being too woke. But, like, let's be real. When you see a homeless person, they're not just, like, a normal guy with a different skin tone. They're a crumpled mess of blankets that smells really bad in an alleyway, being, like, really scary and uncomfortable. and, like, morally upsetting to look at. And by virtue of a lot of them being addicts or mentally unwell, or let's be real here, stinky. I'm not trying to make light of it. It's just true. They are repellent. They are naturally repellent. So in the case of homeless people, like this is kind of like the real test for progressives, right? This is the real test of your principles, which is, can you hold true even in dealing with these people? If you've gone on the metro or you go, you know, on First Street or whatever in Seattle, I mean, or like Third and Pike, I mean, whatever you want to go, and you encounter homeless people, and they're and a lot of them will harass you, they'll bother you, they're in many cases rude, which, not blaming them for being rude, by the way, with what life's thrown at them, not blaming them for being rude, but also sometimes they threaten, they sexually harass, they sexually assault, and it's awful, and it's not defensible, and it's not explained away by their circumstances. Can you see all of that and still hold true to the belief that resources and political will should be spent to make their lives better, which is how homelessness gets addressed? Like, it's a mutual benefit. Their life gets better. Your life gets better. Homeless people don't want to be homeless. If you don't want to interact with homeless people, you don't want homeless people around, you address homelessness. It's the test. People do often give up on their ethical principles when they personally are inconvenienced. There are a lot of like suburban white people out there who consider themselves anti-racist or they're one of the good ones or whatever, but then their daughter brings home a black guy, like their like a boyfriend or whatever, and they're like not burning a cross on their lawn or anything, but they're like, you know, progressivism has to stand that test. I guess to put it another way, you shouldn't be anti-racist because black people are just the same as white people or whatever, like in a fundamental way. They are, but that shouldn't be the reason why. Even in a world where you go to like a city and all the white people look like they're straight out of a, Norman Rockwell painting, and all the black people are criminals or whatever, you should still be able to walk out the other side of that trip and go, well, that sucked, but I maintain my principles. You know? Does that make sense? Like, it's not, you can't have your progressive beliefs be contingent upon the belief that mere exposure to different groups of people will reveal that they all act like about as good, you know? We were kind of just talking about this in the Middle East, where there are a lot of crazy jihadists like all over the Middle East, but they're not like born that way. They're radicalized into that, and their radicalization is often based on really legitimate premises, which is, wow, your country is a shithole, and it's because other governments keep f***ing with it. Would you like to join our like radical, hyper-fundamentalist, nativist, religious military group that'll give you a feeling of purpose and power? You know? And that turns them, like ISIS or whatever, into psychopaths that probably, in most of their cases, I think, deserve, you know, a short walk and a quick drop. But they didn't have to be born to be like that, you know? Like, they didn't... Life... They got dealt a bad hand. Not to compare homeless people to ISIS. I'm just talking about like anti-essentialist thinking in general. It's short drop and a sudden stop. Well, I'm glad I misremembered the phrase well enough that people are capable of correcting me and aren't just like completely in the dark on what I was trying to say. You know, you get what I'm saying. It's like the through the looking glass. You should always be able to understand what forces in life might have made you like the person you resent. If you see a Nazi, you can hate him. Please do. But you should be able to understand, okay, if I was exposed to this propaganda, if I was subject to this information, if I was, you know, this and that and the other, could I have been that person? The answer in basically all of these questions is yes. That's how people are. Very subject to their influences. You get a person in the right, I guess the wrong place in the wrong time, and they can go down a bunch of different roads. Pretty much the case for everyone, except for some very like specific genetic. I don't think anything could have made me swim like Michael Phelps. That guy's got a wingspan like a eagle, but you know, for the most part, that's how it is. And I tell you, if you're American, you are very close to being homeless. Doesn't matter how much wealth you have. You're a few medical emergencies, denied claim away from being bankrupt. Can happen to anyone. One bad car accident for most people, and that's that. A few years after that, they lose everything. Could that make you mentally ill? Well, most of you are already mentally ill. You watch me. Would that make you mentally ill enough to be like Neely? You know, shouting at people on the subway or whatever? I mean, given enough time, maybe. Depends on the nature of the mental illness and how much it develops. I don't know. Imagine being homeless in New York City. Cops always harassing you. You know, get out of here, get out of here. You stink. It's cold. People are mean to you. Barely have enough money to get by. Get resentful at the world. Why wouldn't you be? Hateful. Waking up 4:15 in the morning every day, shivering in the winter sun. Your clothes barely able to keep the frigid window. I think it would make me fairly mentally ill, considering the fact that most people, I feel, if they are mid making a meal and they get the like ramekin out of the oven and then they drop it and it shatters and food and like bits of ceramic go everywhere, that would probably be enough to send a lot of people watching right now into a hyperventilating panic attack at the what ultimately amounts to like a 10-minute cleaning job and having to make a new meal. I think that being homeless would not do wonders for even mentally stable people. Skill issue, but I'm built different. Well, obviously I'd be fine if I was homeless. I would simply market my skills to achieve, synthesis with market value. And I'd be back up on top, baby. Yep, I was hit by a car on my way to the gas station and watched as everything I'd managed to build was ripped away. I got lucky my roommates gave me 2 months to figure it out. Jesus. Really sorry to hear that. I'm glad you had the opportunity. Sometimes all you need is a little bit. Yeah, it's like a slide, right? You start falling, it's hard to stop. You need a stopgap, I got in a bad car accident once myself. I was going home with friends. I wasn't the one driving. We got T-boned at an intersection by a big pickup truck. Big. Like the like if I was standing up next to it, the top of the front would be like around my neck, like a big truck. Got T-boned, we spun out, and our car wrapped around a street light post. The impact was so strong that the truck that T-boned us flipped onto its side. Incredibly, none of us were really hurt. The impact got me. If I'd been sitting a different way, my hip bone would have been vaporized. Not even a joke. I was leaning to the left. By leaning to the right, that would have been that. Probably would have killed me. Did the truck driver survive? Yep. Not only did he survive, he was actually a nurse. Got into a bad accident about 2 years ago. Your insurance company tried running me through the ringer. They got me to settle on half the value of my truck since I worked on a farm. We had spare vehicles, could outlast the insurance company's lowball offer. Pieces of shit. How many people settle for less? I'd be willing to bet a lot, which is why they pulled that tactic. I'm glad you were able to hold out on them. What were we talking about? Oh, yeah. This guy, I guess. It's just this symptomatic of a broader issue. I think, pardon my chauvinism, America in large part is its cities. And things are only going to get worse. Like, you judge a society by how it treats its most unfortunate, because if they can get away with that, they can get away with a lot, And we treat homeless people pretty damn bad. A lot of this comes out from the cities, So-called liberal governance. I mean, you see what happens in California, in Washington, Seattle. Treatment of homeless people. Wretched stuff. As long as that's the case, maybe this is the, I can't say bridge because I think that she's a contemptible grifter now, but something with what Anna Kasparian said, which is I really do think that a large part of what we're seeing in America with regards to the shift right is a very legitimate sense of discomfort and social collapse built on the very real urban decay that we witness, which is evidenced and visible in things like rampant homelessness and repeat criminals being allowed to walk. I think there is something to that. It's just that mismanagement. I mean, it's a difficult trend to break when it's so common all across the country. It would take a lot of resources and a lot of political capital people aren't willing to expend. The problem is, all of this is caused in large part by contempt for the homeless. Because if you're contemptuous to the homeless on like a broad social level, You're not willing to expend the resources necessary to address the underlying causes of homelessness. You don't do any housing first anti-homeless initiatives because people perceive that as spending money on the stinky homeless guys that harass you in the subway or whatever. So things just get worse and worse and worse. It becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy where hatred towards homeless people or disgust or fear or whatever manifests in the form of social austerity that increases how bad homelessness is getting. It's housing first is how it works. There's actually research on this. Housing first initiatives. It's how you deal with homelessness. You build out from there. Yeah, you joke, Benjamin, but the prominence of anti-homeless architectures is insane. It literally, what if we made park benches worse for everyone? You know, what if we removed seating in subway stations because homeless people might sleep there? You know, damn, you're getting rid of a lot of shit. People aren't even building playgrounds in a lot of in areas where you could have playgrounds. They're not building them or not building benches because they don't want homeless people to sleep there. And it's we are allowing our cities to be made worse and less human across the board because we are trying to band-aid over the symptoms of homelessness. We're not solving the problems with urban decay. We can't have public spaces anymore because of what if somebody does drugs? Okay, well then address the drug issue. Not just by arresting people. You have to provide the resources to help people out of their addiction. But nobody wants to do that because then you're giving money to the druggies. Our contempt for homeless people and for people in, low social positions altogether is ruining cities in America for everyone. And no one's willing to take that bold step forward. The Democrats walked back their policy of being anti-death penalty. We barely even talked about that. For a while, the Democrats, broadly, were anti-death penalty. They're not anymore. Why? Because Americans like the death penalty. Because Americans hate criminals. They hate the homeless. And because they're stupid, think of the death penalty as a cathartic way of... Wait, death penalty still exists in America? Yes. They dropped it as part of their national platform. Yeah, they love retribution. We hate kindness. And our cities get worse. And our cities get worse. Society gets more low trust. We don't get beautiful public spaces. We don't get benches. We don't have... What was that beautiful subway station where they removed all the benches? They've done this in New York. MTA reinstalls subway station benches after attempt to deter homeless. Yep, they reinstalled them, but they're anti-homeless benches now. See? Got these big bars. No homeless people sleeping. No, no, no. They've removed benches from the entire metro station before. I remember reading an article on this. The leaning bars are still a thing somehow. Yeah. The new Penn Station has no benches anywhere. I think that might be what I remember. It's crazy. Look at this. Here's the interior at a new Penn Station, at least part of it. Missing something? It's crazy. It's Penn Station. It's like a beating heart of American history and industry. And they rebuilt it. They didn't want no homeless people. It just makes me really sad. There's special sectioned off places you can sit in Penn. The only big institution, the only big place where you can sit down easily and readily anywhere you want anymore is an airport. And that's because the only way to get in is to get past security. Literally, that's the only big institution where you there's seats everywhere, basically for nothing. You can just sit wherever. You can be comfy. Because you have to get past security. Moynihan train station in New York City has no places to sit. Oh, I'm sorry. I might have just shown you... Wait, is this the same or is this different? I thought I just showed you New Penn Station interior because that's what I just Googled. And that's what I saw. But this is saying that it's Moynihan in New York City, which is, I think, what we just looked at. So this is them, they're complaining there's no places to sit. Wait, Moynihan is across the road from Penn. They're the same train stop. Oh, okay. So this is okay. Moynihan is the same as New York City's Penn. Okay. Sorry. I'm a West Coaster. I'm stupid. I'm an idiot. I'm dumb. I'm ugly. I'm gay. How come Japan doesn't have homelessness? They do. They don't have as much though, in part because housing is a lot cheaper in Tokyo than it is in like any major city in the United States, basically. And they do have better safety net provisions. Not by a huge amount, but, you know. The number of homeless people has more than doubled since 2021. It's skyrocketing. It's getting worse and worse, and no one is talking about it. It's not even an exaggeration. No one is talking. At a federal level, the only policy people have towards homeless people is Trump saying he wants to put them in camps outside of cities. That is the thing he said. It's the only thing anyone's saying. Democrats ain't talking about this. And wow, look at that. The vast majority of homelessness you see is in big Democrat strongholds. 28% of all people experiencing homelessness are in California. Grand Central Metzio is a better example of no seating. God. Oh, come on. There's no way you're getting so much throughput on this that you can't have some... It's just... You can make it as pretty as you want. What if your feet hurt? Largest changes in experiences of homelessness from 2022 to 2023. 1 year. An increase of 39%. 39% again in Colorado. Largest decreases. Louisiana, Tennessee, Delaware, Alabama, Mississippi. That's in 1 year. Largest decreases over the past, since 2007, Florida, Texas, Georgia, New Jersey, Maryland. That's from homeless people leaving the state and dying. I think there's one other reason. It's harder to become homeless in a state like Louisiana because shit ain't so expensive. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying it's because these states have good local policy. I'm saying because New York and California are so punitively expensive to live in, if you start falling back, you fall back harder. But it's a change over years? Yeah. I think it's more to do with why there's such a low amount to begin with. But I'm not here defending Louisiana. I'm just saying there's a reason it's so bad in New York and California. Washington County approves $10 million for homeless centers in Hillsborough to Yard. Well, that's nice. That's good. That's very nice. Housing Connections, life-saving resources. Wages are higher in California, though. You know, yeah, what happens if you don't got any wages? Also, wages are higher in California, but that does not keep up with the rent there. Like, proportionally, if you live in, like, LA, it don't keep up. I've heard of Skid Row my whole life. Do people in LA just ignore that it exists? I mean, yeah. It's basically like a self-reinforcing homeless person concentration camp in the middle of downtown. You just sort of get used to it. Skid Row isn't even that special anymore because now every American city has an area that looks like this. Like Skid Row was ahead of its time. Now everywhere's like this. The worst shit is that people literally can't get out if they want to. In a lot of cases, yeah. Except places that street sweep. Well, the reason they've all collected in Skid Row is because they don't street sweep you. That's like the containment. Like I said, it's like a informally maintained concentration camp. You often can't leave the area, at least not meaningfully. They don't sweep it because they try to push everyone into it. I used to clean those camps. There are rats and trash piled high. It's not a great life. Honest question, Florida or California? Trust me, California. Look, California got its issues. Florida got them too, and they're getting a lot worse. Why can't they just address homelessness instead of sweeping it under the rug? Because we hate homeless people. You have to be kind to homeless people to help them. That's it. We know how to help and fix homelessness. In Finland, they eradicated homelessness. Eradication might be a bit of an overstatement. They brought it down a lot. Just depressing subjects today, man.